Good afternoon, everyone. I know I'm between you and lunch, so we'll keep this really short. We have a full session on the transport and governance work that WRI has been doing together with Parisar, which is going to happen tomorrow post-lunch. So if this interests you, do take some time out and join us for that. Uh, a very quick introduction on this. I think we had a really interesting discussion about challenges regarding operations and so many other things. But when you actually think about it, it all boils down to how processes are laid out, how governance plays such a big role, and how agencies have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So given that, a couple of years ago, we initiated a study, or rather initiated creation of a toolkit for assessing governance in urban transport. So we all close to maybe 15 or 18 different agencies that are directly, indirectly working with urban transport in the city, and how processes are, how decisions are made, how are policies made, how participative is planning, how are projects rolled out. So a lot of these things we really haven't researched and understood very well. We all say that there's no coordination and there's no transparency, accountability. We agree that there is no capacity, but we really wanted to go back and look at real examples and understand why this is happening and what are the processes. Is there anything even laid out, for this? So, without speaking much more, I'm going to hand it over to Ranjit. Ranjit Gargil is from Parisar Pune. Parisar has been working with WRI and has helped us create this toolkit of 55 indicators, which we're currently testing in 10 different locations in India. So let's hear a bit more about this and then more details in the session tomorrow. Thank you very much. Ranjit.
Thank you, Shirley. So since I stand between you and lunch, I will try to get through my 100 slides very quickly. I'm kidding, there are So the Transport Governance Initiative actually came out of something that had been done earlier by WRI, which is called the Electricity Governance Initiative, and which was called EGI. So EGI basically looked at governance within the electricity sector, and a lot of changes happened in the electricity sector. This is, of course, a global initiative, so it's not restricted just to India, but to looking at governance in a particular sector across sort of mainly developing countries. And so what we've done is the very first part has been the development of this toolkit. We did a lot of consultations with various people to try and decide what are the good indicators to look at. Currently, we are doing the assessments, as Shri mentioned, and I'll give you some more details about that, to try and understand, because a lot of this work is a little bit abstract, and so it takes a bit more grounding to do the assessments. And once you do that, you can really understand whether those indicators are working and try to get some feedback into the toolkit itself. So there's a process of actually reviewing the toolkit also. And eventually obviously the ultimate aim is to try and then do some advocacy efforts to look at how governance systems can be changed across various urban transport agencies that are involved, and give us a sense of priority of what are those changes that are required. So what we've been discussing, of course, throughout this conference and often in many conferences on urban transport is really what decisions are being made. But when we look at governance, it's more about how those decisions are made rather than what decisions are made. And so a lot of the things, for instance, if you just think of the two sessions that we had before this one, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made about technology, about standards, about performance metrics, about giving information to people, etc., etc. And so really the question that we've been trying to look at is how are these decisions being made? Who's making them? What are the processes in which those are made, etc. So the focus is therefore on the decision-making process, not the decision itself. So we won't get into, as part of the TGI, into any sort of judgment about what final decision was made, as long as that decision was made using a good process. So what is a good process? So at least that we have to define. We don't want to be judgmental about the decision, but we want to have some judgment about the process itself. And so what we've used is something called the TAPC framework. And TAPC basically stands for transparency, accountability, participation, and capacity. And so if the decision-making process has used these elements of governance, then we would say that that's a good way of going about this decision-making. So what do we mean by transparency? We have to be careful about what we mean about transparency. So for us, it's really the public disclosure and availability of documents at various stages. And so this is really critical. Of all the things that you talked about in the morning, the question that we would ask is how much of this information, how was vendor selection done, what specifications were done for the vendors, what sort of techno-economic feasibility reports you made, what sort of cost-benefit analysis you did, how much of this information is actually available to the public and at what stages, including things like minutes of meetings, detailed project reports, etc. So in general, we would make a blanket statement that more transparency is better governance. And I think there are various laws and acts at the national level which sort of say that same thing. The other thing that we want is accountability, because we need to understand what is the mandate and, excuse me, sir, hello, can you, yeah, little disturbance, thanks. So really here the issue is, when we look at the various agencies, the transport agencies involved, what is their mandate? Are processes for decision making well defined within that organization? Because what we really don't want are ad hoc decision making. We don't want, it was mentioned earlier, you don't want to change a government or a change of a person at the top and then suddenly the decision making process to change. What you want are standard processes by which decisions are made within the organization. What are the performance metrics? Are there performance metrics? Are there internal reviews? Is all of this codified within your agency? Not done just because a good CMD has come or just because somebody wants to do it, but this is part and parcel of the agency's standard working. And is there a legislative review? Of course, a lot of the things that we're talking about are technical in nature. And of course, we need to have technical experts who are making some of these decisions. But we also live in a democracy, and therefore it is important that ultimately there has to be legislative review. So what are the boundaries between what is decided technically and what is decided by the legislature? Of course, you also don't want the legislature to decide what the standard should be or what technology should be used. That should be a purely technical decision, but of course there has to be a legislative review. Participation, we all talk about it. I think it's very poorly understood, even within the context of smart cities. We talk about participation, but these are not very well defined concepts. But really what we are saying is that within all agencies, there's a requirement for public participation. It isn't done just because somebody wants to do it, but it is always required. That there's a quality of public participation, because what you really want is that the decisions need to be informed by the feedback that you get from the people, not just sort of ask your opinion and then throw it in the trash bin. And is the participation happening inclusive, which really means that are especially segments of society that are impacted by a decision. Let's take fare revision as an example. In that process, is people participation something that happens, and do you make sure that the poorest or the most affected person is also going to be part of that discussion, which also means that the manner in which you have those participatory discussions becomes very important. So for instance, having a language, just having a gazette notification, for instance, would not be considered a quality process for public participation. And finally, we also talked a little bit about capacity. We talked about the fact that vendors have a lot of information, and perhaps the transport company doesn't have that information or the ability to be able to process a lot of the technology and the trends that are happening in that sector. So what are the qualifications of people? What are the tenures of people? Some agencies struggle with a constant change in people. So there isn't really a tenure that allows that agency to develop those kinds of capacities. What sort of access to knowledge do you have? What sort of training do you have? So these are the four sort of very broad parameters on which we decide whether this is good governance. Now if you look at sort of the transport sector as a whole, ideally what you would want, is that you would want to have some sort of a policy. So in India, for instance, you have something called the National Urban Transport Policy. but at the state level, for instance, we find that there isn't any urban transport policy at all. I mean, at least we don't know of any. Ideally, then what should happen is that when you make your plans, they should then reflect the goals that have been set out in the policy itself, and that's when you make your plan. And then all your projects should ideally then stem from that plan. We, of course, don't quite operate in a manner like this. Often the project is decided first, there is no plan, it doesn't link to policy, etc. But really what we want to know is whether when agencies plan projects, are they looking at the plan, is it part of the plan, and so on and so forth. Now once you look at, and by projects I mean projects and services, so for instance public transport companies would count as service providers, but that is also sort of a service/infrastructure project. And the three things that typically go with projects and services are standards. What sort of standards are you using? Whether it's data or whether it's a public infrastructure project, what sort of road design standards are you using? Do those exist? How were they made? Are they enforceable? And so on and so forth. One has to look at the way in which budgets are made, because often what happens, at least in a country like India, is that the budget becomes the deciding factor for projects and for everything. But it perhaps shouldn't be like that. Perhaps it should be the other way around. Once you have a plan, then you should make a budget so that you can execute that plan. But how many transport companies, for instance, have a 5-year plan, have a 10-year plan, and so on and so forth, are other kinds of questions. And the last thing that we found, and it was quite interesting, is that what is the regulatory aspect around urban transport? And this was actually a very difficult question to understand. In the electricity sector, it was somewhat easier to understand. There is the Energy Regulatory Commission, for instance in Maharashtra it would be NERC, in Delhi it would be DRC, and the Regulatory Commission is then an autonomous independent body that regulates all the people who provide services in that sector. So the electricity sector is an open sector, has been opened up, and in different countries it can be different. But what about in India? There are public service providers. Who's the regulatory authority? Who's telling the public service provider what sort of information you have to provide to the public? What sort of service standards do you have to adhere to? What sort of safety standards do you have to adhere to? And that body has to be an autonomous and an independent body. And so a lot of the governance around that is something that we also looked at. So broadly, when somebody went out to do the assessment, they looked at policy making bodies. So that could be a legislature, it could be a city council, it could be a cabinet, because they're the ones who are making the policy. Then there's a planning body. Often it could be somebody making a transport plan for a city. So who are the planners? Which is the planning body? Who sits there? How do they go about making their plans? How transparent are they? How much public participation do they have? Then you get to the executing authorities. So it could be transport service providers, it could be those who are building infrastructure. When a flyover is built in a city, for instance, who makes that decision? Somebody asked about a cost-benefit analysis. Do you do a cost-benefit analysis? Is that document available in the public domain? So these are the kinds of questions that would be asked around executing authority. Same thing for standards bodies. It's very interesting. In a country like India, it's very hard to even identify who sets the standards. So for a lot of us think that IRC is sort of the standards making body. Turns out they're not even a statutory body. They're just an NGO who are making standards. Are they enforceable? When they make their standards, are they fair? Do they make sure that there's equal representation from everybody? So these are really critical questions that need to be asked. And finally, I mentioned a little bit about the regulatory authority. And so the way the toolkit is structured is that there are indicators, a standard way of doing these kinds of toolkits, but within each indicator, there are many elements of quality. And each of those elements of quality, based on the assessment, there are teams which are going out and doing these assessments, the element of quality is either met or it is not met. And that's sort of a bit of a judgment that the assessment team has to make. And then depending on how many of those elements of quality are met, that indicator gets a score of either low, medium or high. And so this is sort of, just to give you an example, there's a planning indicator called effective planning. It's kind of an accountability indicator. And it has elements of quality like, is there a clearly defined planning process? Is the planning process comprehensive? Does this planning process integrate with other policies? So for instance, if you're making an urban transport plan, do you take into account the climate change policy of the country? Do you take into account the economic policy of the country, and so on and so forth? Are the plan outcomes specified? Is it very clear what you will achieve at the end of this plan implementation? And do you actually think about how this plan is going to be implemented? A general woe in our country is that we make plans and those plans are never implemented. So one has to even look at how those plans will be implemented. And then you will have something like if one or less of these elements of quality is met, you get a low rating, otherwise you get a medium rating and you get a high rating. In the end though, this is not like one of those city index indicators kind of a thing where there's a score and there's a table and then you can compare different cities and so on and so forth. This is really, all the wealth of the knowledge comes from the assessment itself and what the teams are doing. So I think that's really the key thing here. And so this is the kind of detailed sheet that the assessment teams have to fill out. They have to do interviews, they have to look at documents, they have to cross-verify, they talk to officials, they will talk to public, maybe the NGOs, maybe the technical experts, and based on a lot of information that they gather, they will decide whether these elements of quality are met or not met. I've already mentioned a lot of these kinds of indicators for executing authorities. We did the pilots in 4 states, and in each state we wanted to do 3 cities, a major city and 2 smaller cities. And the teams that were involved were the Civic Action Group of Chennai, Center for Environment Education in Bengal, the Institute for Social and Economic Change from, not IISc Bangalore, but yeah, and then ICLEI, which is based in Delhi. And the first thing that everyone had to do, you're not supposed to read this chart, but just to show you that it's incredibly complex just to even figure out in a city. So CE, the first thing that they had to do was go to Kolkata and find out who does urban transport stuff in this city. And it's various agencies, it's development authorities, municipal corporations, service providers of various kinds. So you have to sort of map out the entire urban transport sector. So this is what they did. Who does the plans, who does the regulation, who does the execution of projects, who does the budgets, who sets the standards. So there's a fairly long list of that they have to do. And then based on that, they sort of do this kind of rating system. This is, for instance, just looking at the planning, the policy making, the planning done by KDMA, and these are all the indicators, and then you sort of set the high, low, medium things. And then you could also look at it from a transparency point of view, participation point of view, accountability point of view, and capacity point of view. I won't go into this because these are very preliminary results that are coming out, and for more details, I would ask you to come for our session tomorrow. But basically here, sort of red is bad, green is good, broadly. So this is transparency, doesn't look that bad. This is accountability, looks a little worse. This is public participation, doesn't look good at all. And I think we know that public aren't involved in our decision making. And this is capacity, which is not too bad. So at least broadly one can sort of start getting a sense of what are the areas which need to be improved if we talk about good governance. So and the next step would be to start using this tool for advocacy to bring about certain changes. And this is something that even the agencies themselves or government itself should think about in terms of where they want to go next and how decision making is done. Thank you.
Sanjeev, that was really interesting, and thank you all for patiently listening to this. If there is any one quick, anybody, if you have a question, we could take that.
So one question, Ajit. You said, So you said the end objective is not to see if the decision is right or wrong, but to see whether the process of making decision is followed or not.
Yes.
But does it also include whether the process itself is flawed or not? Does it also include that?
Yes. So whether the process was followed is, so what you're trying to say, suppose there's a certain, suppose you're supposed to make a plan in a certain way. The question is whether they're even following that process.
Exactly.
And one level before that is, do they have a process at all, and are we judging that process? So mainly what we're doing is we're judging the process, not whether they're following the process, partly because a lot of the assessment also involves public participation and transparency, And so the idea is, suppose you're supposed to make a transport plan by following a certain process and you're completely violating that process, then there ought to be checks and bounds even within that. Suppose you're supposed to publish that plan, you're supposed to make sure that there's public participation. Then we would sort of assess how transparent was your process, how much public participation is built into it. Because often what you will see, at least in a democracy, is that people will start asking governments, why haven't you followed this process, if they at least know that this process needs to be followed. So in that sense, we sort of don't go too much into sort of independent violations of a process itself.
Sure, thank you.
So, thank you, Ranjit. So now we break for lunch. We're 15 minutes behind schedule, so we'll start our next session at 2:15. We actually, in fact, have a very interesting session on open data, and we have like experts from Bangalore, Hyderabad, and around India to really talk about it. Gopal. So, and we'll have a very interesting activity also. So I would really say we'll grab quick lunch and we are back in 45 minutes at 2:15 sharp.